Well, Merry Christmas, guys. This video is pre-made, so we're getting this out one day earlier. This should be coming out Christmas afternoon. I hope everybody is having a great Christmas so far by the time you are watching this video. Today, we're just going to be taking a long-range look, diving through the entire rest of the winter and kind of just updating you guys on what the models are thinking as of now, looking long-term down the road through January, through February, and even into March. So we're going to get a great idea of what to expect coming up. Now, we're kind of going to be getting longer and longer range as we take a look at each model. This is our ensemble model, the European ensemble model, first things first, and this is going to get us through the next 15 days or so. The next one should get us further than that, well into even portions of January, late into January, into early February. Same thing with the one after that. But then we'll take a look at the CFS monthly model after that one, and that's what will get us to March. So let's take a look at this. Right now, we're dealing with, well, I'll get us to actually the day you're watching this. Right now, we're dealing with, by the time you're watching this video, very brutal cold air still in place. Not quite as cold as Christmas Eve was. Very, very cold on Christmas Eve. And Christmas morning should be extremely cold as well. But basically, we're going to be warming from that point forward. So Christmas morning and onward will be warming. And that will continue to warm, as you can see, all the way towards the 28th here on Wednesday, as we see this warm blob kind of just transition its way into the east, and this is going to be the new pattern that we're stuck in for quite a while. And it is a very warm blob, actually. We're going to be seeing temperatures well into the 50s, 60s, and 70s for a lot of folks here. So it's going to be warming up. A big winter thaw is on the way. And we see this last all the way through the end of this model run here on January 8th. We see a negative PNA setup, which is forcing warmer air into the eastern United States, and it's basically blocking any cold air from entering into the east for now. So that is the pattern that we are in right now. Let's take a little bit of a longer range look here. This is going to be in 7-day increments. So by the time we're taking a look at the 29th through the 5th, here we can see this is going to be the look as we just saw a second ago. So again, the positive PNA, warmer temperatures in the east. Now, by the time we were taking a look at the 5th through the 12th, which should be right around 2 weeks from now, this is the look. We still have some warmer air here, according to this model, and then colder air in the west, which is going to be that negative PNA pattern still. What was that? The 4th through the 11th? No. 5th through the 12th. There we go. So we're going to go the 12th through the 19th. And what we start to see happen is some more cold air, perhaps. This model is trending at this later on. We do still have some cold out west, but not quite as much. And by the time we're reaching about the, let's do the 20th through the 27th here, we see more and more cold air, according to this model, being able to work its way into the east. And by the time we're taking a look at the first week of February here, it's the same story. Cold in the east, still very, very cold out west. This model has a bias towards cold in the west usually and warm in the east. I've noticed that for some reason. Also, warm across the board is a little bit more likely to show up on this model than it is in real life. So that is something to pay attention to as well. It's important to know these trends and these tendencies of these models. That's up to the forecaster to basically determine and be able to share with you guys. That's why expertise on these individual models, each individual one, is very crucial, and just having knowledge about what they tend to do wrong, what they tend to do right, and using that to your advantage. Now, as we take a look at a whole different model, this one's going to be in 5-day increments. We're going to get just as far on this one, but we're getting kind of a differing opinion here. So this is going to be a pretty interesting look. This is the 25th through the 30th here, and you can see we're still going to have some cold air in place here for the southeast through most of that time period. But as we take a look at the 1st through the 6th, we're just going to take a little bit of a jump there. We see that there is cold temperatures along this western seaboard of North America there. And then we could see that there is totally just warm air surging into not only the eastern United States, but also the central United States as well. So this is going to be a big flip, obviously, from what we're seeing Christmas weekend here. We're seeing brutally almost historic cold temperatures here in the east, and we're going to go all the way up to about 10 to 15 degrees above normal. So this should be about a 50 to 60 degree swing over the course of maybe 10 days. So it is going to be a massive, massive difference here. Now, as we work our way towards the 6th through the 11th of January, this model starts to trend at some cold moving in here, the CFS model, and this warmth is kind of retreating back west, as you can see. And this would be basically what we need to get to in order to get back into a cold pattern. This is exactly what you want to see happening. Although I will say that it starts to show more and more cold out west and still cold in the east here, but coast to coast cold is pretty hard to come by. We did see that happen over the fall time. I think it was in October we saw that pattern really set in, where we were pretty cold compared to normal from the west coast all the way to the east coast here, kind of like what we're seeing right here. So it isn't impossible, it's just not a very likely pattern typically to set in. We do see that by the time we're reaching the 18th through the 23rd of January, we see a warm air mass start to set up back in the eastern United States again, and we once again reach into this negative PNA pattern on this model. Very interesting stuff. And as we reach the 23rd through the 28th of January, it's the same story. We have the warmth here in the east, cold in the west. We're taking everything with a grain of salt, of course. This is extremely far out, 30 to 35 days. So specific dates and specific things aren't as important as overall pattern things, like saying, oh, for a majority of the time here, we see a negative PNA. That's a factor that we can take away and probably will have a good chance at verifying. But being like, oh, it's going to be above average in Virginia and below average in New Jersey, that's a little bit too specific, obviously, to see 30 to 35 days out. That's why long-range forecasting is possible if you focus on the right things. That's the important part. The overall larger picture is what we can really get, but more micro and macro things aren't going to be able to be determined that far out. That's a little bit unrealistic. Now, we do see cold air start to move back in apparently around January 28th to the February 2nd time frame, but we still have this negative PNA, and I think that's my biggest takeaway here. By the time we're reaching the 2nd through the 7th, though, this model just has this full-blown Arctic blast here in the east. Still this negative PNA out west, but we see a full-blown Arctic blast start to take place for the east. And this warm mass up here for Western Canada would usually support this type of a pattern. This could be from a southern jet moving through, bringing more storminess, cloudiness, and overall cooler temperatures to the south here. That could be what's happening here. So a true Arctic blast here. Your northern jet likely doing something like maybe even up here, something like this. With your northern jet, and then more of a southern jet starting to intrude. I don't know what exactly this model is showing, but that's kind of what I take away here. These models do have multiple members, so they do tend to get a little bit mixed up here in the longer range. So this could just be an average outlook, but it is interesting to see this model at the very last minute start to intrude very, very cold air. Could be a sign of things to come by the time we're reaching February, that things could get colder for the month of February. So for now, what this model showed, just to kind of go back over it, the first week of January is warm, the second week of January is cold, and then the last 2 weeks of January was warm again on that one. So a majority warmer month for January, but there is some colder times in there, which I think is very promising. I already see people in the Facebook group Weather Freaks canceling winter, saying, oh, winter's over. It's literally Christmas Eve. We have months of potential cold and snow still to come and already being canceled. But we can already see that even though January is expected to be warmer, we do see that there is at least one cold week in there, or at least a cold 5-day period, which that makes a big difference. That could feature a major snowstorm, and then all of a sudden everybody would be happy. So it doesn't really matter. Let's move on. Let's take a look at the monthly outlooks. So let's just take a look at January. Again, warmer than normal is what's expected. I even think this is a little too warm along the western United States if we do truly see a negative PNA throughout the month of January. But here for the east, I really feel like this is likely a good forecast here from this model. I really feel like it's going to be more of a winter thaw type month here on February, or January better yet. But as we move into February, it's pretty clear this model wants to make things very cold here in the north central here and the northeast, as you can see, which this would be well welcomed, I'm sure, by the cold and snow lovers. We do see there is a bit of a southeast ridge here, which does mean that likely we would be seeing storms move up through the United States and then moving offshore halfway up the coast with the jet stream there if we did see any coastal storms, instead of moving more like this all the way up the coast. So for these areas, this could mean less snow, which obviously they don't see much snow anyway. But for these areas here, this could still mean a lot of snow. In this type of a scenario, we're still taking it with a grain of salt. This isn't a sure thing, but for now, this is what this model is showing in the long range, which looks very promising. And we can even see some deeper Arctic air that looks to potentially be moving in at times here from the north central United States. So overall, this is a really good look. And March, getting even colder here, we could have one of those years where March is more of an extended winter month. March is considered to be a meteorological spring month, so March 1st marks meteorological spring. So this looks more like a winter month to me this year. According to this model right now, keep in mind it's still 3 months out, so there's a long way to go. But a lot of Arctic air potentially moving through here, potentially some backdoor cold fronts at times. That's the look I'm getting from this model. So yeah, it's a little too early to cancel winter, in other words, because there are some signs that there is still a lot of cold and a lot of snow on the way at points during this winter. And January, as of now, looks the warmest out of the entire winter that we have going on so far. So February and March still look extremely promising. I'm excited. We're going to be uploading every single day, so be sure to subscribe. Be sure to hit the bell icon for daily notifications so you don't miss an upload. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below. And have a Merry Christmas, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow.